I mean, oh wow, it is 2:30 on the dot. It's like a professional team over there. You guys know what you're doing. So let me welcome everyone to our Black Journalism panel. This is hosted by the DragonCon Digital Media Track, which was formerly the podcast track. But as things grow and change, podcasting, it's not just podcasting. You have YouTube, you have Twitch, all sorts of digital media. So we try to represent it all. Also, the charity this year, I have my cheat sheet, is the American Heart Association. DragonCon is matching up to $100,000 raised during con. So you can text to AHA 2019, American Heart Association, or 44321. I know, money's tight for a lot of people during DragonCon, but whatever you can spare, if you can spare it, help us out there. So, without further ado, I want to again welcome everyone to the Black Journalism panel. But before I do, Charles is back. Everything okay? Yep. You always make me worry when you come in here. So let's get started. I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves and tell us a very little bit about themselves. If you are a writer, if you are a podcaster, whatever you do, I want to know about it. So we're going to start down there with you.
Hi, everybody. You can hear me right? Well, I don't know.
Get a little closer to the mic. Get a little closer to the...
Hello? Yes.
We good? Yeah. We're good.
Okay. Hi, I'm She-Bag Cosplay. I am the co-host of The Blurred View and also the host of The Blurred View After Dark. I'm from DC originally and unfortunately forever, apparently. I can't afford to move. Okay.
I got real quick. Yeah.
So what's up, everybody? It's your boy, Jonathan D'Angelo, a.k.a. Johnny D, and I am the co-host of She-Bad for The Blurred View and also Blurred View After Dark. I'm from Atlanta, but I live in Alaska, so I traveled very far to get here. It was painful. Extremely painful.
All right, I got my first question ready, but go ahead before we...
Hi, my name is Marista. I am with the Coco Chronicles. We do a podcast, we do YouTube, and we're very heavy on Instagram.
I am moderating today's panel. My name is Tony P. Henderson. I'm a podcaster, digital media creator, but it's not about me today, but that's me.
Wow, I guess I'm legacy media today. My name is Jesse Holland. I am a race and ethnicity reporter for the Associated Press. I also host Washington Journal on C-SPAN on weekends. And I also teach journalism ethics at Georgetown University and New York University.
This
Awesome.
is very intimidating very fast.
Why do you, I'm not going to lie, that's why I started down there.
I appreciate that, yeah.
Now, in full disclosure, I was very excited. I got a text that said, hey, we have a kind of a big deal journalist, professional journalist, so just be aware. I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I've been coming to this convention for 10 years. I've been a Blurred for 40. And I am just now recently seeing panels like this, and not only seeing panels like this, but people coming out to them. So I think it's amazing. I think it's awesome. It's just, yeah, seriously, Mike, seriously. But then I wonder, I'm like, man, it took that long, but it did. But we're here now, and so I'm going to turn it over to Johnny, who he suggested the panel, and he went to the director and said, I have an idea for a panel. Here's what I would like to do. And he wrote it up, and it got accepted. So, Johnny, my first question is, what are you doing in Alaska?
Right.
How'd you go from Atlanta? I have a notice that says Atlanta, Aero, Alaska.
Well, Alaska is where the Army sends people to die.
So we go.
I was in the military I was in the Army for 7 years, deployed twice. My final duty station was Alaska, and I decided to stay so I could go to school to be a practitioner.
I'm an Army brat. That's how I ended up in Georgia. My dad's last assignment was here, and you end up, like you said, where the Army puts you. Yeah. But more importantly, like I said, you were the one that put in the work and recommended a panel about specifically black journalism.
Right.
How did you get there? What made you think to do that?
Because so I was watching the news. I was already into the Blurred View. We were already doing our thing, reporting on blurred news and happenings and stuff. And every time I watched the news, it was like not to offend anybody, but it was a contradiction. Like whenever a non-person of color would commit a crime, they'd be like this mentally ill, troubled, like very successful youth that just had a bad day, wrong turn. And then whenever a person of color committed a crime, it was this criminal thug, gangbanger, drug dealer, dad abandoned, sociopath. And I'm like, wow, why can't we just have a bad day?
Right. Why can't we have a bad day too? Yeah.
So, like, what made me suggest the panel was because we as people of color get reported on how we're seen through other people. And since the media is predominantly non-POC based, they're going to report on us however they feel. And so I feel like with black journalism, it needs to be important. It's important because we are able to then write our own stories and our own narratives. We're able to do the research. We understand us better than anybody else. So we know the difference between a criminal and a bad day. We know the difference between somebody who, needs help and needs assistance and somebody who just wants to watch the world burn, so to speak. But nobody's going to be able to write that but us. And that's why I suggested this panel to be able to get that narrative across.
I think that's a great reason. Unfortunately, you're right. It is even, last week it's still that whenever it's a non-person of color, there was some mental illness or something. And you mentioned, I don't want to offend anyone. And but obviously no one's up here to offend anybody, but it is a sensitive topic. And, we don't have to skirt and sneak around it. We're here to talk about it. So, obviously don't be blatantly offensive, but we're here to talk about things. So just so everyone knows, we're going to try to talk about it. So what can be done? What do you think we can do to help fix that or adjust that? Or, when I knew I was doing this panel, it had never dawned on me. I looked around. I said, well, there's not a lot of black journalism in mainstream media.
Right.
So like I said, and I know it's not an easy question you can solve in an hour, but it is open to anybody. What do you think we can do to start moving in the right direction to help encourage that, to help fix it?
No. Okay. Well, I personally, doing stuff like this, having an open conversation and talking to each other, if you realize someone in your community needs your support, give them your support. Or if you realize there's a massive issue and you just can't solve it alone, try to get a community group going together. Facebook and Instagram are fantastic for that sort of thing and help support each other. I feel like if we supported each other more and put that out into the forefront and showed people that we're not drug dealers and, felons and things like that, then it would help a lot. We're already doing it a lot, I see, but it's not getting as much attention as I would like. So definitely, if you're doing it already, great, but put it out there, push it to the forefront, try and grab people into your good cause to help spread a positive perception of people of color.
And one of the things that we have to continually think about is modeling. And I don't mean modeling as in runway, as in modeling as in showing the people coming behind you that you can do this. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten into journalism if not for seeing Ed Bradley on 60 Minutes. I wouldn't have gotten into journalism without seeing the Robert Naylors and the civil rights journalists that came up before me. And now we have children looking at us doing legacy media, doing podcasting, and saying, well, if they can do it, why can't I? So it always takes that first person. Like, for example, I expect this panel to be at DragonCon every year from now on. It takes that first person to say, we need to do this. And then it becomes ordinary. Once the first person does it, then everyone else can see it, and they say that we can do it too. So it takes somebody taking that first step to say, hey, there needs to be more POCs in podcasting, in coding, in law, in politics, in journalism. But once you get that first person in, then the door opens for everybody else.
I agree with you. And once the door opens and people actually, want to be here and want to do this, we get an equal footing. So we're not just getting, a non-POC cast of characters on CNN trying to tell us what happens in our neighborhoods and how we're supposed to function and what we look like according to their narrative.
Right.
We get us up there with them saying, no, wait, this is how it really is. this is what caused this, and this is why these kids are committing crimes or these epidemics are happening. It's not just, oh, well, we see a bunch of black kids cutting up, so they must be criminals.
Right.
You know, we don't get a singular narrative.
And it takes time, but it's not just getting people of color in the newsrooms and in front of the microphones. We also need people of color who are the editors, who are the publishers, who are the owners. Because that's actually where the decision-making power comes from, not from the person you see on television. It's the person off camera who's writing the scripts and putting together the shows and owning the stations that actually has the actual power. But you don't go from nowhere to station owner. You have to come up the stream. And we're still working on that. Byron Allen's doing, if you don't know who Byron Allen is, keep your eye on him, because he is buying television stations around the country. Armstrong Williams, buying television stations around the country. People of color are moving into these spaces. But it's a slow process, but someone has to start.
The someone has to start is what's resonating with me, because it does take action. This Dragon Con is a perfect example. The guy in the red shirt, he's the director of this track, the one that I was giving a hard time to. He runs the digital media track. He is open to anybody's ideas, but he's not going to come up with a black journalism panel. That's not his world. He doesn't understand that. So it takes somebody, again, man, like I said, like Johnny, to be like, hey, I got an idea, and to put it out there. Every idea doesn't get accepted, but if somebody's trying and putting in the work and trying to put it out there, the opportunity will come up. You know, again, that's a good business partner of mine, but there's some stuff he's just not going to think of. He's not going to think of the blurred view. You know, that's not his world. So, and that's your panel, right? When is that, Sunday?
Blurred Unite on Sunday at 11:30, same room.
Yeah, see, he's not going to think of that. And so it takes someone like you, hey, let's do this, you know. Yeah. I'll be perfectly honest. I haven't seen this many people of color in one room in a Dragon Con panel. So I'm like, yo, all y'all been here? Like, where have all y'all been?
Where have you been?
I thought it was just me. Like, I kind of got sidetracked there. I'm sorry. Also, I did forget, the way I run my panels, this is a discussion. So if anyone has anything they want to add. Mike, is the catch box working? Oh, we got it. They'll fix it. We got a top crew over there. So this thing right here is a catch box. It is a microphone in a Nerf in a Nerf cube. You think I'm playing?
All right, test 1, 2. We're working.
So
You tell them, I'll
you have to
demonstrate.
walk it. You can. Yeah, there we go.
That's all there is.
So this is the catch box. If you have any questions, let us know. We'll get already up front. Look, I didn't even get to finish my sentence. So we're going to throw this at you, and we're going to do a little soft chest pass. Don't hit the ceiling. I did that last year. And again, you'll catch it. I promise you, it's squishy. It doesn't hurt. And you just talk into it right here. Ready? Look at that throw. Look at that throw. That's straight
All
LeBron.
right.
Magic. Your
Caught
question.
it to the side too. Yeah, how do you start? I've actually got ideas for a Black artist and creator documentary and art book, and we're also doing a podcast. So it's like, where do you get the ball rolling? Like, first of all, and what sort of topics and angles are we really hurting for in the community? But yeah, mostly like, where do I put my foot down and get the ball rolling?
I'll speak on the podcasting part. I did. I've done numerous podcasts. My last one I just wrapped up. It went 5 years. And what I love about podcasting, please don't knock the camera over, or Charles will never have me back. What I absolutely love about podcasting is it's a very easy entry, very low barrier to entry. We have 2 big sponsors here, Blueberry and Libsyn, that. You know, we don't show favorites. They're both comparable. They're both very inexpensive. And so how do you record and all that stuff? You can find it all online. I don't mean to brush that off. But once you get something recorded, you can get it up and running pretty easy for fairly cheap. Now, the other thing you said was a documentary? Is that what you're...
Yeah, documentary, art book, stuff like that. Trying to focus on Black artists and creators.
Well, being the only journalist here, documentary, what if you can help answer, how do you think someone would get into that? Maybe small
Rent a
circuits
camera, ask a bunch of people, do you want to be in my documentary? Most people would say yes.
Yeah.
And that's how you start.
I literally took the words out of
Good
my
answer,
mouth.
yeah.
How you start.
I mean, and adjust your expectations because you literally can film a documentary from your iPhone.
Yeah.
I mean, they have stabilizers. You don't need to go out and buy a huge $4,000 camera, but understand that what you're working with. So, I mean, once again, everybody starts somewhere. You do a great documentary from your iPhone, believe me, investors will find you to do the next thing. But if you don't start and you keep waiting to raise enough money to get that $5,000 camera, that's 3 years that you've wasted that you could have already started from somewhere. Now, most of my experience is on the print side. I literally moved into television 2 years ago with C-SPAN, so I'm still learning on that front as well. But from what people who know what they're talking about tell me, literally just start. Everybody, we always wait until things are perfect to want to start. Just start and then move from there. Believe me, a 15-minute documentary done on your iPhone is better than the 3-hour documentary I'm still planning in my head, still waiting on the money
Absolutely right.
to start. So just do it.
Yeah, that came up in another panel, and everyone does come back to just do it. And we joked. I said, "Oh, Nike's calling you," but I mean, it's a brilliant slogan for a reason. With podcasting, just again, convention's over on Monday, Tuesday, go home, start recording. And exactly to his point, it's not going to be, these top podcasts, but that shouldn't be your goal. It's just to make it and get it out there. And next year, matter of fact, I'm calling you out. So next year, when you come back to this panel, I want to hear, oh, my show is such and such, such and such.
I want to be on your show, so do it.
No, by next year, you need to be on
You can
episode
add.
10
Yeah. No.
by Dragon Con next year.
Yes.
And to answer,
Not episode 1, episode 10.
And to answer your question as far as topics, so within the artist community, it depends on what kind of art. I campaign to cosplayers all the time that their cosplays are art in itself.
Oh, totally.
I tell them that all the time. As far as like artists, as far as like pen and paper type of art, topics that the community is hurting to cover, the fact that shading, right? So we got a new anime character in Pokemon, Nessa, and there were non-POC characters trying to lighten her skin shade and claim that we've never worked with dark colors before. Well, that in itself is a problem. On top of you trying to lighter shade a dark skinned character. So those are some of the issues, shading and or the caricature of black characters in a stereotypical or racist way. That's also a problem we have. So the categories run deep when it comes to issues, especially when it comes to us. That's the easy part is the issue.
Or you can go with the age-old Crayola versus Rosite. Oh, there you go.
And I mean, the best topics are topics you're already interested in. I mean, if literally Toni Morrison said, if there's a book out there that you want to read and it doesn't exist, it is your job to write it. If there's a podcast or a documentary that you want to see and nobody else has done it, it is your responsibility to make that thing happen. Everything I write is something I want to read. And I write it because nobody else has yet.
And I don't want you to make my ideas. I can make my own ideas. I got that covered. I want to hear what you're thinking about. What's bothering you. Use the example of the cell shading. That's bothering him, but what's bothering you? And stuff you care about and are passionate about. And I'll add, it doesn't even have to be about POC issues.
Nope.
Just POC creators making and doing whatever you're passionate about. It could, cartoons, anime, video games, whatever you like.
You can talk about why sucky artists end up being famous. Wow. Their whole senior year on their project. Came in second, but that's another story.
If anyone has questions, or comments, raise your hand. We'll get the catch box to you. Don't be scared. It does not hurt. Anybody before we move on? All right. I could see you wanted to ask.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, what's your name?
Janae Benet.
Hey, Janae Benet.
I'm an esports journalist, and my background is journalism and all that fun stuff. And I just remember Nike is a thing, you just do have to do it. And you were like, oh, if you make a documentary, people will find you and stuff like that. And I think that stuff is great. That voice probably sounded really like, oh, blah, blah. I didn't mean to be sarcastic.
No,
but,
it's fine.
I made a player profile on a black girl gamer, Cuddlecore. She's like huge in Tekken and stuff like that. And I remember being like, okay, I gotta make these. And like I made them and I sent them everywhere. And it's like the quality wasn't that great because the audio wasn't super great. So I'm just wondering, like, I guess a better example would be Issa Rae got picked up by Pharrell after she was doing like a couple of her episodes and stuff like that, and then the quality jumped up. So I'm trying to figure out, like, even though my quality may not like jump up a lot, can you still like see the talent through like
Yes.
the really
People
bad
sure notice the
quality?
potential.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I've watched plenty of awfully shot. Like they were saying earlier, on an old iPhone or just whatever they had. Some people still have like old camcorders. It's the what you put into it that really helps it shine through. If you make sure that it's well executed and you're doing your best to put your best representation forward, then it'll get recognized for what it is.
Okay.
I think a high quality, boring piece of content will get turned off before a low quality, entertaining content. So if you're entertaining, I can get through, the lower quality. And much to his point, it's really hard to have low quality. The iPhone alone is decent quality. Like I'm back from the days of like, I was like, you remember VHS cameras and tape to tape editing.
I remember Betamax.
Oh, yeah, all right. You got me there. So I think technology's at a point where anything you do will have a good floor of quality. And as you get into a hobby, again, I do podcasting and streaming. The more I get into it, I'll allow myself, okay, I'll spend a little more money. But exactly what he said, don't wait, because now you're just waiting. Yeah. Oh, till I get a better camera, better phone, better this, better that. And you're not creating.
And keep in mind, frankly, shaky cam became a genre with like Blair Witch Project, Super 8.
Yes.
I mean, you can make what you have work for you. I mean, you can pretend like I was doing this on purpose. The camera's moving because I wanted it to. The audio's bad because I was going for a certain genre. But I mean, the one thing I have to say with like any project, just don't wait. I mean, because every opportunity you have to say yes to something, say yes to it. You can always go back and say no. No, I didn't really want to do a podcast. No, I didn't really want to do a documentary. But there are going to be few opportunities in our lives where we have a chance to say yes. If it's something you feel like you need to do, say yes to it and move forward. Worry about everything else later.
Can I tell you a secret? The Blurred View is on episode 50. And this is the best quality we've ever had in an episode today. I've recorded people like on the phone, like I've called them on the phone. Most of our episode interviews are over Skype, and I have like my mic set up, and the mic is like between me and the computer, and the mic picks up them and me. And so this is the best quality I've ever had on an episode. But we're on 50. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So just if it's like going on YouTube, right? And you get bored one day and you're sitting on the toilet or whatever, so you pull up Chris Rock's old stand-up and you have like Chris Rock in
this
like
is oddly
Comedy
specific.
Well, you get bored.
I mean, like, Alaska, I guess, right?
Yeah. You got Chris Rock on like Def Comedy Jam in the 90s, and then Chris Rock on Netflix. And even though the quality's changed, the content is classic because he just does what he does and he does it well. So it's more you than it is the quality.
2 questions. It's funny you say that. So do you feel like at a certain point in time when you you're not as gritty or as grimy as you used to be, that you've grown up and you've went from that whole telling jokes and the back streets like Kevin Hart, and now you're all big and your jokes aren't as relevant anymore? Do you feel like as artists like you grow up that they lose a lot of the touch to the streets like they used to have?
That's a given. A lot of times, I mean, it's like when you grow up in a certain neighborhood, like say you grow up in the hood, they always say you can't ever go back, and you just lose touch with stuff, and it's not intentional. As much as you try to like be like, oh wow, that's real messed up, that happened, this happened. Everybody's looking at you like, well, what you know about it? You living up here in the suburbs or wherever you are, you don't know nothing about what's going on down here. And then you, as a person, feel like maybe I can't talk about this stuff anymore because I'm not experiencing it anymore. But you also can't let that stop you either, because it's important.
I agree. I used to live in Atlanta. I live in Alaska now, and I came back and I didn't know how to get home. Like my best friend was telling me we were coming from Dragon Con last night. My best friend was like, take a left here. I was like, here? Nuh-uh. Like I can't relate to a lot of things that I used to be able to relate to, but it's not gonna stop me from reporting the news. You know what I'm saying? Because even though I can't relate to, maybe I don't know what in particular, maybe I don't know exactly what your neighborhood is going through, right? But then I'm gonna come to you and say, hey, what's going on in your neighborhood? Let's come on the show, let's talk about it, because it's important to your neighborhood and the people around it. And maybe other people in other neighborhoods can relate. Maybe not, but see, I interview people. So like it's a little bit different between me and Kevin Hart, but that's where Kevin Hart takes his personal, he goes from the hood experiences to the personal experiences. With me, I can just, once I'm out of Decatur and I can't report on Decatur, I can reach back and say, you're still there, y'all are having issues, let's talk about it. You know what I mean? So me not being able to fully relate is not going to stop me from reporting the news.
So that creates my next question. With that being said, do you feel like with a lot of you guys actually starting to build that momentum, that popularity, that at some point in time you should be like, hey, well, I'm not really familiar with the subject, but there's a young lady out here like this young lady right here that you should probably check out our podcast, and she's giving this information and she could probably give you a lot more better detail than I do. Do you feel like it's like important for you guys to push other?
Always.
I mean, every single day.
Yes.
Always cross promote.
Always, first and foremost, always support black business. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I'm not gonna sit here and look ignorant when she knows more. That makes me look bad. Then you're like, Blurf, you don't know what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, like if she knows, she knows. And like, cross promotion, always.
I mean, that's when you have her on the show.
Exactly, yeah.
And so it supports your business and supports her as well.
Exactly.
Outside of that, I mean, like, I feel like a lot of times people will bring you on the show, but in some people's, how do you say it kind of feels like you're debating with the person. You're not really getting your point across. Basically just saying, like, hey, here's Jimmy with the news. Jimmy, take care of it. And you send him out there versus saying, hey, come on the show. We want to talk about this. And you ask him questions, and the questions make you seem a little out of date with everything.
One of the things you have to keep in mind about journalism is that journalism is about conflict. I mean, there's a reason why most of us don't watch C-SPAN 24 hours a day, because when you do straight stuff, it can get a little boring. There's a reason why MSNBC and Fox and those kind of stations continue to have people on them shouting, because that's entertaining. That's what we want. That's what people want to watch. So, I mean, the debate is part of the field. I mean, that's the same way in written journalism. There's a reason why we continually, in written journalism, we write about crime and controversy, death and sex, because that's what people want to read. I mean, that's what we do.
What do you?
So expecting not to see that. I mean, the places where you don't see that are places like PBS and C-SPAN, and those are the two news channels we watch the least.
Yeah, that are begging for money.
Well, of course, everybody, for my bosses, everybody watches C-SPAN, right? Say yes, please. Yeah, there we go.
We're on tape here.
We're on tape, so I had to get that one in there.
I'll say, man, as a creator, anyone that's creating anything, whether you're POC or not, you should always support the creators, because nowadays with the internet, if you have a podcast, I have a podcast, people can listen to both. We don't both come on Sunday at 8. So I try to always share and find stuff that people would like that they want to listen to. So always, as much as you can, show some love and network and whatnot. Do you have something else? Because you got excited when he talked about the.
Because you remember the situation with how he said the guy from Empire.
Yeah.
A lot of people, as soon as stories like that break, they hop on them the same day. How much time do you think you should give a story to fester before you comment on it and give your reviews, or do you feel like you should hop on it as soon as social media?
It depends on what form of media you're in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like with the Blurred View, Jesse Smollett, that had nothing to do with us. Like that was like Empire, Fox, that was not like to me that wasn't blurred enough for me to actually care. So like during an episode, I cracked a joke and moved on. Like that was literally the extent of that. You know what I mean? But maybe for him that might be something different. But for me, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that sucks.
C-SPAN does not care about Jesse.
I don't know. Like that wasn't.
And that's a total entertainment story. So in my job as race and ethnicity writer, it does not rise to the level of something I would spend time on. But once again, it all depends on what part of the media you're in. Our entertainment writers were all over that because that's their job. And in this 24-hour news breaking world, you don't always have time to wait and see what's going to happen. Sometimes people have to the hot take is your job, whether you're right or wrong. And especially with hot takes, you go, 90% of the hot takes you hear are going to be wrong. But their point is not to be right. Their point is just to make you listen.
Go ahead, man. You.
I think that's what kind of creates a problem when it comes to black people in the media, because a lot of times you can Google the information and pull up everything on them.
Right.
But with that white kid who just murdered somebody, it's like you have to do a dissection of everything about his life, and then you always see in the news, it's always like breaking news, and then they give you all this stuff, this old prison record, something he did when he was just trying to get his life together. Whereas the other kid, it's like you watch the news and every day they add one little detail to it. That whole 2 weeks they tell you the same thing.
Which is why we need more of us in this business.
Right.
That perspective right there is the perspective that's not only needed in the newsrooms, is needed in the station's boardrooms. You don't know how many times I've had to have that argument. My 25th year with AP was in May. I can't tell you how many times we've had that argument over what does it matter that this guy was black? Why did it matter? Why does it matter that this guy is white? If we're gonna say black kid killed here, why aren't we saying white kid killed there? I mean, we have this argument all the time, but if we're not in the room, nobody's gonna speak up.
You're gonna lose that argument.
You're gonna lose. You're gonna lose the argument because you're not there to make it.
Argue, yeah.
So I mean, and one thing that I always tell people about journalism, believe it or not, they listen to people who call. They listen to people who email. They listen to people who write letters. They read that stuff. If they're doing something you don't like, tell them. You are the customer. So they want to keep you. If they're doing something you don't like, call and tell them about it. I'm not saying call and cuss them out or anything.
That moment everybody calls Fox News.
Yeah. But if you don't tell them, they don't know they're doing something wrong. They're going to just keep doing the same things over and over until someone says, hey, this is wrong. This is what we saw with Me Too.
Oh, yeah.
They would have kept reporting all the stories the same way unless somebody said something. This is what happened with Black Lives Matter. They'd have kept reporting the stories the same way until someone said something. And once again, back to the where we started from. It takes one person to say something to start a movement. But if no one wants to be that first person, nothing ever changes.
We had a question in the back. Someone has the catch box, and we'll come to you next.
So just kind of to piggyback off of that discussion that's going on, I wanted to ask, in your opinion, typically when people are getting started, they have a specific audience, especially people of color, like, oh, okay, I want to speak to people who look like me. As you grow and your audience begins to grow, you kind of have to tailor certain things so that you're speaking to that bigger audience, you're keeping them entertained, and you keep them kind of coming back a little bit for more. Do you think it's more important for POCs, anybody, to kind of integrate into the mainstream or wherever that is and make sure that you're explaining their perspective to other people who wouldn't understand? Or do you think it's more important to kind of carve out that niche and have what we have for our own and just don't have to bother with the explanations? Like, they'll come figure it out or do whatever happens, but at least people who understand will have that space to go.
I would say that it's important to keep what you were doing originally that way, because it's what people came there for. If you have people who are like outside of like your normal audience, they're coming there because they want to listen to you, listen to what you're saying. So in a way, it's like kind of like being an ally. Now, I will say, as far as like trying to be a little bit more broader about stuff, it's kind of like a hard thing to do, because I remember when I was growing up, I went to like an all-black school. You know, we had like a handful of white kids, and they would always try to like have these very like black specific themes for the dances and stuff. And I'd be like, well, we can't have like go-go as our theme because the white kids don't know about go-go or whatever. So they were like, we ain't got to worry about them. Like, well, they go to school here. And that started a whole thing. And I was like, we cannot keep excluding them and then wondering why we're having all these issues. Yeah. Because if you guys are sitting there claiming that they're excluding us from things, we cannot turn around and exclude them from things too. That's not solving the problem. Obviously, sounds very unpopular. So it's kind of like a slippery. So I feel like now, especially now that we have like all these black people into all the things that a lot of us as younger people were into, like in the secret, it's a little bit easier for us to be like, oh, hey girl, da 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 da. But like before, it was kind of hard. But so I definitely say keep with your core values of what your show is, but and then just think,
just grow around it.
Yeah, just grow around it. That's good. Yeah.
The thing about the Blurred View is, so our name deters a lot of people, and we've been told that, like, oh, the Blurred View, like that's for black people. Yeah, but you know, we have non-POC people who follow. We have white people that follow Blurred View, and they're interested. They want to know what we're talking about. They want to understand where we're coming from. Truth be told, I can't. It's not like in my mind. The problem is I started with us. Mm-hmm. I'm going to finish with us. Mm-hmm. I can't, no matter how hard I try, I don't think I could tailor the Blurred View any other way, because my thing is this: no matter how much I try and pander and cater to everybody, they're either going to accept you or they're not. Mm-hmm. No matter what the message is, no matter how I portray the message, you know. So I'm going to keep with Blurred View, you know, a Blurred's view, and hope that people can say, you know what, let me see what this group of people are really about. What's this community about? What's this culture about? You know, in the hopes that they actually, you know, accept us. You know, I'm not on my show, you know, saying just outlandish stuff about white people and non-POC people in general.
You're not being a hotep.
But yeah. But at the same time, I'm not trying to cater to everybody either, because the issues that I speak on are issues that affect my people. And we're here in this panel because we don't have enough of that as it is. So for me to then go from, you know what I'm saying, like, for me to go from this to, you know, a CNN type show, you know what I mean? I feel like I'd have to turn my back on my core audience in order to accommodate to everybody else, and that's not okay either.
Please, go ahead.
To piggyback off what they're saying, unless like a lot of people in your audience are asking you to cover a specific thing, unless it's passionate to you, you're in no way obligated to cover it. Or you could just cover it in a way that suits your point of view or that fits into the aesthetic that you've already built. It's okay to grow and to expand your topics, but like they said, just keep it 100. Keep it the way that you had it, because that's why I came to you, because I like what you're doing. Change it how you see fit.
I mean, we talk about hentai. That's an everybody topic, right? I mean,
you're welcome.
You know.
One of the things you have to keep in mind is that that every space isn't for everybody. I mean, you might want the bigger audience, but it might not fit what you do. I mean, we saw this happen with Jemele Hill. I mean, his and hers was great. And it was exactly what they wanted to do. They then tried to move to a different audience with Sports Center 6. But that audience wasn't for them because they continued to do the exact same thing they did before, and it didn't work out. I mean, it worked out for Jamil great because she has this great gig now. But she's doing the exact same thing she was doing on His and Her. But when they moved to try to get that bigger audience by turning it into Sports Center 6, it didn't work out right. So I'm a fan of the whole dance with Who Brung You. I mean, everybody wants as wide an audience as possible. But the second you forget your core audience, you're basically reinventing yourself on the fly. And that may or may not work. This is one reason why I'm fascinated. Eddie Murphy is going to be hosting Saturday Night Live.
Yes. Yes.
And we're all remembering the Eddie Murphy that was then.
Yeah.
How is he going to reinvent himself for hosting Saturday Night Live? Was it 34 years later?
Yeah, 35 years later. And it's like, that's not even, I was watching Raw, and
that ain't Eddie Murphy now.
In the restroom,
in the restroom, and that's not okay now. You know what I mean? Like, that's, he has to like, because I want Eddie Murphy.
Right.
You know,
right.
But we're not going to get Eddie Murphy. We're going to get like Edward Murphy. You know
I would recommend Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, Seinfeld show.
Yeah.
He has an episode with Eddie.
Yeah.
And you're right. But I mean, to be fair, Eddie Murphy's 20 years, 30 years older and has grandkids. And, you know,
right.
you become a different person, you know. And listening to him now, I was intrigued. She had a question. We'll go back here to the hat, and then we'll come back up to you. Just quick comment. What's up?
Red Fox.
Oh, Red.
He's always wrong, but that's why we like him.
You're right. Red Fox never changed.
Never.
Question up front with the microphone box.
Yeah, just speaking to Jesse and your comment about it only takes one person to make a comment. In North Carolina, we have this group called News Voices, which is part of Free Press. And a group of Black people came together to talk about what is it about local news? Do you like it? Do you don't like it? And it's mostly we don't like it. Why? Whenever there are any Black issues in town, they don't come to us. They don't come to us to talk to us. It's mostly white reporters. And
What part of North Carolina?
Charlotte.
Charlotte, okay.
This came up out of the uprising. And it's like we've seen time after time, there's a rally, there's a march, and when the local reporters show up, the first thing they do is they go to the one or two white people that
Are they white reporters?
White reporters.
They're scared to talk to people is what it is. As simple as that.
Like, get out the business then.
Yes, I agree with you 100%.
Get out. It's just a comment.
No, and
Yeah, and you know, we as a group, we're trying to find a way of changing local reporting, local media.
If you figure it out, let the rest of us know.
I think we have to show up en masse. Yeah.
That has been the solution before.
Question in the back.
I want to ask about training programs and then about science. So there's incredible Black journalism programs at HBCUs. There's the NABJ that really supports Black journalists. But one thing I've noticed is that there are not many Black journalists that cover science, partially because science has pushed them out, not invited them in, and the historical issues that exist. But we know like some of the biggest emerging issues like climate change, healthcare, have roots in science. So how do we invite more Black journalists to cover science, because the communities that they're representing need to have these conversations?
I volunteer as tribute. Yeah. I love weird science. Anything strange and dealing with science. If I knew science was even as remotely as cool as it is, I would have been a scientist. It's so amazing. So I think a lot of times it's not even inviting, it's just like, hey, you want to figure out how to make a lightsaber from scratch?
I think
I'll report on that.
I think just me personally, the root of the issue is in young Black kids or kids of color aren't being exposed to the science. Now that's kind of a new thing, the STEM and the math and sciences, but I think traditionally that wasn't an avenue. And so now that, when people are adults, like, I never got into science and it's not an interest. So for me, I think it starts with, children are the future, all that stuff. But seriously, I mean it. Like getting kids into science, getting little girls into science, getting everybody into science. And then hopefully through time we'll have, women reporters on science, people of color reporters on science. I'm not going to lie, I was shocked. You say esports. I said, what? Are they even doing that? People of color in esports?
Right.
Well, she's the three right there.
Right. Hey, and that goes back to someone got to do it. Someone needs to start, Question up front.
Okay, so in the last few years, especially with Black Lives Matter and all the other things going on, I've seen a lot of Black reporters or podcasters or whatever who are reporting on these things, and they'll be on social media, and they get in Facebook jail or whatever is jail.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you guys have experienced that. What do you do about it? Is there anything we can do about it? I know you, Mr. Jesse, probably have your editors and whatnot. And whether they slow you down or not, I don't know, because it's journalists and you have to go through editors. So, any answers?
Well, I will tell you on the journalism side of my life, I stay away from social media as much as possible. I mean, honestly, because the two journalistic organizations I work for, they are quicker to fire you than to praise you for social media. So I spent my first journalism class at NYU was last Monday. I spent 30 minutes of a 2.5-hour class telling these future journalists to stay off of social media, because a lot of us, we think we're comedians. We're really not. And we think we're saying something that's snarky or funny, when in reality it's just stupid. And once it's on social media, it's there forever, no matter how much you try to delete it. And so, as a journalist, I tend to not tweet unless I'm doing something that I'm really, 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 really proud of. Otherwise, all you're gonna see on my social media feed is my kids. They can't fire me for that yet. But to answer your question, I have had several friends who are journalists talk about race and ethnicity issues on Facebook and Twitter and find themselves blocked all of a sudden. In fact, my friend Avis Joan DeWeaver just had this happen to her like last week. And she was talking about the 1619 Project. She was praising it. And all of a sudden she found herself kicked off of Facebook. She called and protested, and they changed her 1-week suspension to 1 day. But once again, if something like that happens, you have to speak up, speak out, because there's some faceless person somewhere who is in charge who won't know that people are upset about it if we don't say anything.
Right.
There's a whole movement of writing right now around race and technology that's in its infancy. There are more and more people who are writing about it. And plus, by the way, since I brought it up, I have to go ahead and say this now. We are seeing a resurgence in Black journalism right now behind the 1619 Project, behind the Atlantic's great story about how African Americans lost land in the South. If you haven't read it, go find it. ProPublica did a similar story with 2 African American men in South Carolina who were thrown in jail for 9 years for refusing to leave their rightfully owned land so it could be developed.
All right.
Yep.
Black journalists are out there doing the work that we have not been allowed to do for years because the media thought that Americans wouldn't read it because they didn't consider us to be Americans.
Right.
We weren't their audience, so there was nobody who would read that stuff. Now you have people who are breaking through those glass ceilings, people who are doing podcasts. We're now getting the chance to talk about the things that we talked about at home, but never out in public. Now we can do it, but I have to say it's incumbent upon us to support these things. Because believe me, there's somebody somewhere who's ready, sitting, waiting to say, nobody's listening to that podcast. Why should we put money into it? Why should we pay advertising dollars into it? Why should we print this? If we, who've been saying for years, we want to see ourselves reflected in it, now we're there, and we have to prove that we need to continue to be in these spaces. Sorry, lecture over.
And if I may, can I add to that right quick?
Please.
As well, like, so, you know, especially among, you know, my generation, right? We're big on like hashtags and retweets and reshares and everything like that. It's you know, it's like you said, it's about sharing, right? So if I post something, if the Blurred View posts something that you like, reshare it, and then have your friends reshare it. So if they block us, they're not gonna block you and the 100 other people that shared it. They can't catch everybody. There's too much effort in that. You know what I mean? So it takes that. You know, if you see something that one of us said and you liked it, hey, run this and run that story, because yeah, they'll catch us at the source, but they're not gonna catch the 1,000 other people. If Beyonce can tweet something and 1 million people retweet it in like 10 seconds, then black journalism should be able to have the same, if not more, reach.
Right.
It's just about us putting in the effort to support our own.
Put to everyone's points. Put in the effort to make it. Put in the effort to support it. That's really it. That sounds pretty easy. What's up?
I just feel like a lot of times when you are trying to support it, and even if you post it on like group pages, like now every group page has like these strict ads.
You're right.
They don't let you post anything. It's like when you're posting something that's positive and has a message, it doesn't get it. But if it's a half naked chick and she's like, "Hey, we selling hot dogs," it's like she gets 1 million followers.
Well, send me that one. But my wife is not watching. Okay.
Tom in the back. I'm very curious to hear Tom Cochran from Blueberry.
Throw it.
Can you throw? Can we get the mic to the back? Go ahead. We're gonna do this together. Teamwork. You hit the pivot. Boom.
There we go.
So as a podcaster, you guys are all talking about being deplatformed, locked out, censored. I'm just telling you, with podcasting, the great equalizer is a website that you own, a .com, having your own control of your own RSS feed, and no one can close you out. No one can shut you down. No one can take you off the air. You own that. Now, unless the domain provider takes you down, which that doesn't happen. Even Alex Jones, who we all can say, ugh, right? Okay, so he got took off Apple, he got took off all these other places, but his show's still online. So if he can stay online and put his filth in online, we can put a message out that's positive, getting information out there, and get our opinion so that if some censor somewhere says, let's take this off, with podcasts, you can't be taken down. It's just the power of podcasting is the freedom of RSS and the real simple syndication that, you know, you control that. They can't take you down.
And Tom, thank you for being here. He's, like I said, for those that don't know, as a podcaster, I know his name, but he's big wig at Blueberry, invented Blueberry. I don't know. But serious, I mean this, like, serious podcasting business here, and he's here to listen to this panel. So that's awesome to me. Thank you for being here. What's up, man?
My bad.
No, you're good.
So is it weird that like a lot of you guys cover cons, but is it really hard? Because I've noticed that every time I've applied for cons, like every year, I got approved maybe once. It's so hard for like black groups to get approved for media passes.
You have no idea how much we jumped up and down. We found out.
I literally thought Dragon Con was gonna ignore my entire request, and when he emailed, like we and her were talking, and I seen the email, and I was like, this is spam. I was like, there's no way they approved this.
But as far as media coverage, because I feel like there's not a lot of black groups that get media coverage when it comes to these events.
No, you're right.
No, you're right.
No, you're absolutely right. You're right. It's hard.
I mean, I went to the first WakandaCon in Chicago last year, and as a member of the media, but I was there as a guest, I couldn't believe that there were no TV cameras there. I mean, none.
This year they had
They did have someone show up.
A camera. Okay.
I mean,
Better than none.
once again, you have to understand who they think their audience is. If they don't think their audience cares about a subject, they're not going to cover it. And part of it is because they need to know that we're watching. I mean, a lot of times they don't. The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah.
If we are not telling news stations, newspapers, websites what we want to read, listen, and hear, read, listen, and watch, they're not going to provide it. Why should they?
I feel like when this situation occurs, like nobody boycotts it. Everybody still shows up, and even when people write articles about it, they still get ignored and they don't respond.
Because being popular is more important than being knowledgeable.
That's where all the sharing and as much as my co-partner handles a lot of our social media, and she's the one who's got all the skill with that sort of thing, and it really is important to share it out. It might not be the most professional if you're doing like hard journalism, but share it out, share it out, share it out. I don't care if you only get 2 likes on it, repost it, put it on a different page, share it to any possible thing you can. If nobody is listening, yell louder. Somebody will.
I'm gonna tell you something a little effective. This dude right here been posting the same thing for like 20 months. Stephen Clark, remember his name?
Stephon Clark.
Or whatever.
Yeah, Stephon Clark.
And I'm just like, and now it's embedded in my brain. And I wake up, it's right there in my brain. When I go to bed, it's in my brain. And it worked. No likes, no nothing. But every day on my timeline, there it is.
Stephon Clark, remember his name.
Right
I can't speak for the media passes of this con in particular, but I work a lot with this track, and this track being digital content creators, it's like the new thing. It's that everyone has access to. So I know as a fact, I've had conversations with the director. He's looking for everybody, and that's why when you took your shot and proposed this, it's, yeah, man, I'm down for that. Let's do that. And there's an amazing turnout in this room. And because of that, because of people coming, it will continue. You know, had he proposed his panel and there was one person sitting here, in a business sense, he'd have to be like, I just can't, with one person. But everybody showed up. So this will continue because people have showed up to support it. I think one question in the back. Go ahead, man. You can yell. Oh, you got the box.
Yeah, I have a comment. So to support what you're saying, let's all actually rate this panel afterwards.
Oh, definitely.
And
don't
afterwards,
leave this room until you
let's
do that.
go in the outside the door, and I'm willing
Get a
to
picture?
stand there with everyone and email the con and say, let's get more media passes for Black journalists to be here to cover the event. Let's all do it together.
Yes.
And send a bunch of emails right now. Or if you have a better idea, let's do it. But let's do it.
Get the hashtag.
Yeah.
Get the hashtag for the convention. Start tweeting about this panel now.
I
Before we even leave.
He said when you write the TV stations, they listen. I promise you, I'm telling you personally, the director of the track gets a list, I've seen it, of every rating, every comment. And it goes to people. People see it. He reads through that. I swear by my name, that happens. So if you put a comment in there, I promise you, it's getting sent through and it's getting put on the track and sent to the people that see it. Last question or comment.
It's a comment.
That's all right.
For this particular subject, if you have the DragonCon app, they have a rate the panel on there, and the bigger panels have been making sure they say that at the end of the panel to make sure you rate it, so they know they should continue on. So if you have the app, I have the app, but it's not working right now. But if you have the app, make sure you rate it. I'm definitely going to rate it once my app. I think it's the building. I can't.
Oh, there's no one. After starting today, there's just the internet and phones don't work. And you know what? With that, please be honest.
AT&T.
Please be. If there was stuff that wasn't covered, don't just be like, oh, it was a PLC track. It was great. If it wasn't great, there was something else you wanted. No offense, man. But if there was something else you wanted in the track, please let them know, and the feedback gets passed on. Did you have a comment? Was that a little hand I saw? Yeah, what's up?
So that's the one thing, whenever you rate stuff, when you go in and reshare, we were talking about traditional media and digital media. Traditional media looks to social, looks to digital to see
Why do you think so many of us in the traditional media have written about Popeye's fried chicken sandwich?
It's the memes. It's the memes.
I wish this panel should be. We're out of time. This panel should be 3 hours. We could talk for 3 hours, but I want everyone to tell us where you're at, what show you're on. Let's run through that real quick. Starting with you.
Okay. Once again, I'm Shebag Cosplay. I am the co-host of The Blurred View and the host of The Blurred View After Dark. I also have like 40 other podcasts that I'm working on because I'm addicted now. You can find me on Instagram at Shebag Cosplay and also on Facebook with the same tag.
And I'm Jonathan D'Angelo, aka Johnny D, founder and co-host of The Blurred View. You guys can catch me at The Blurred View and just at The Blurred View on all social media platforms. That's
and
where
Facebook Live.
Yeah, and Facebook Live and Instagram Live. We're always doing something.
My name is Marista Stubbs from the Coco Chronicles. You can find us on Instagram under Coco Chronicles, Twitter under Chronicles Coco, and on Facebook under Coco Chronicles Podcast.
I'm just at TonyPHenderson.com. I do Twitch, new podcasts come in. All my social is there. And that, to his point, to Tom's point, you have your own site. No one can take it down. You don't have to worry about what Facebook allows or what Twitter allows. I have TonyPHenderson.com. I say whatever I want there.
My name is Jesse J. Holland. You can find me most Saturday mornings holding my tongue at the comments on Washington Journal on C-SPAN. I'm also a race and ethnicity writer with the Associated Press and the newly named editor of the Black Panther anthology coming out next October called Black Panther Worlds of Wakanda.
And I have to end up with thank you guys so much for coming out and
really.
being here and supporting this. Next year, if you have panel ideas, submit them. If you have podcasts you're working on, make them. If you have anything you're thinking about working on, please make it and come back and be a part of this next year. DC Digital Media Track. Thank you all so much. That was great.
That was great.
Yes.
Oh, don't. You were like teacher hands the whole time.
Oh, picture.
Nelson.
All right. I just met his girl today. I don't know.
Everybody got it?